Um, what is the ways of doing that? I know that you touch on what is called the rule of sacrifice and the rule of eternity. Is that kind of the solution?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm giving these two approaches, two parameters to dealing with suffering, the best way to deal with suffering. And I say you you have to play them both at the same time. These are uh, rules as in ways to play, not boundaries to the map, not things you can't break, but things that you want to do. Um, Something you want to abide by. So you have to actually play them both at the same time. And they're in a way a little bit paradoxical, but I think that they do mark out the whole territory. So the law of sacrifice is the idea that you can use effective action to move towards your goal, move towards the alleviation of suffering. So effective action could be just about anything, but the reason why it's the law of sacrifice is the idea that anytime that you are pursuing a particular thing or that you are um, trying one way or committing yourself to something, you're losing out on something else. And so fundamentally, if you want to assess a particular problem, you need to do particular things that apply to that problem, which means you aren't doing so many other particular things that you could be doing, and I mean, this gets really concrete. If I want my house or wherever it is, my work, not to smell like garbage, I need to take out the garbage at the appropriate times. That means I need to put my phone down and stop scrolling on YouTube and go get the garbage and take it outside. And it's windy and I'm afraid the garbage bag is going to rip. And there's all these, uncomfortable things that I don't necessarily want to be doing, but it gets me a better result in the end. And you can kind of stack, obviously you can stack these things and you can do so much to move towards a better environment. And that scales greatly. And then there's obviously more complicated ones, but I think this goes down to you say evolutionarily back to the idea of ritualistic sacrifice, um, up to the idea of giving giving to charity, and um, hoping for the best. All of these and everything in between. I think all of these play a role in moving you in the appropriate direction and creating around you an environment that is going to lessen your suffering. So that's a long way of saying essentially you can problem solve, right? And then with the emphasis of problem solving, isn't necessarily just a selfish act. Actually, a lot of problem solving is selfless and requires sacrifice. It requires a long-term focus. It requires interaction with others, charity to others, all sorts of stuff. So problem solving or the law of sacrifice is one rule that'll get you pretty far.
That's a that's a really good point that you make that emphasis on, and that ties again with the level of engagement. You know, I remember a couple of episodes ago, you were talking about how some Buddhist monks, in order, they had to rely on the people around them to feed them. They weren't able to actually go and get their own food. And so I guess that would be the receiving end of charity. Uh, but nonetheless, that requires engagement in the world around you rather than being fully invested on intrinsic growth. An aspect of growing intrinsically as well is interacting with the world around you. And so I think that really hit home with me as well, looking at that law of or the rule of sacrifice being, you know, that struggle with the suffering or the obstacle, that level of engagement, knowing that it is uncomfortable or knowing that you're going through an experience that isn't necessarily one that you want to go through, but you know that there's an outcome, a potential outcome on the other side that is going to have direct benefit on you and others around you. And so uh, I think that also ties in with again that alleviation of suffering. You are not only engaging to alleviate the suffering of others, but as a result, it also reduces your own personal level of suffering because there's that inherent purpose and engagement in that activity. Um, and so I guess that law of eternity is kind of the other end of the spectrum. It's kind of that it's that embodiment of living on that correct spiritual path. Am I getting that right?
Um, so I think it's hard to say because usually when we think of the correct spiritual path, we're thinking about
Yeah, that's
uh, discernment and honing and particularizing, and that's part of the law of sacrifice. But
mhm.
the law of eternity, they really aren't separable, and that's something I talk about a little bit. So it is part of the path, ironically, at the same time as being something that's sort of above the path and transcendent of the path. Um, so the law of eternity, um, you might say, is the ultimate goal. And so it's sort of like forever infinitely in the future, but at the same time, somehow it has resonances in the moment. So when we say like, you know, you're doing effective action and you have a hope for reward, the short-term fruit of effective action is one of the rewards that you hope for. Like there are material things that you can gather, that you can distribute, that you can work with. There are material obstacles that you're working through. That's all part of the law of sacrifice. That's effective action, and skillful action and learning and that sort of stuff. Um, so in a way that entails reward as well. But then the ultimate reward, is something that there's this paradox of like, yes, you're working towards it, but also as part of the law of sacrifice, but also this is the law of eternity, and it's about the eternal reality of that reward, which means being an eternal reality means it's not something you're creating, it's not something you're earning, and it's something that is already present in a way. So the law of eternity is the well, St. Paul says, um, I believe that none of something like I believe that none of the sufferings we're experiencing in this life are comparable to the glory that awaits us. So there's this idea of moving towards something, gaining something, and achieving something, but he's also talking about a reality that is so transcendent and so all-encompassing and engulfing that it washes away even the current sufferings that we have. So it is about this transcendence and this breakthrough of another level of reward, you might say, and indeed the ultimate and the infinite reward. So the law of eternity is not about something that you do, it's about ringing the bell, the reminder, the resonance that the ultimate gift is already given and is present and is all redeeming. And therefore, whatever's going on pales in comparison to that. Even if it seems dim and far away, if you hear, even if you just hear it ringing a little bit, it brings it that much closer and does have a temporal effect as well as that eternal reality.
And so would you say then that yes, there is that connection between the two, because if you're not engaging correctly, if you're not acting charitably, if you're not alleviating suffering in others, then the outcome on the level of the soul, I guess, which is what we could be speaking. I mean, it's another reference to potentially to the soul and the body. Um, that then one wouldn't achieve salvation. One wouldn't be walking the correct path. Therefore, they wouldn't reap the rewards that delayed gratification can bear.
Yeah, yeah. So the I mean, we have to be careful about saying achieve salvation. You know, you can't achieve
Right,
the
right,
infinite,
right.
but there is this mysterious connection of, you can't really move away from the infinite eternal.
It's attain would be the word.
Right. And then, eh, yet at the same time, you can do things that make you feel more distant. Or, I think it comes back to the law that Christ lays out in the Lord's Prayer, where he says, um, uh, "Forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us." And after that, after saying the prayer, he tells people through two parables and tells them directly, like the judgment that you use against others is going to be used against you. So while yes, eternity is a gift and eternity is given, if you are going about your individual life and you are acting in a way that says, you don't really care for the purpose in your body and your life or the purpose of others, and you think everyone else is a dumb monkey, uh, caveman, whatever.
NPC.
NPC, yeah, exactly. That's on point. You think everybody else is a mindless NPC, then when you when you have the chance to hear the bell ringing for the infinite to shine forth, you're going to have demons around you. And those demons are going to be whispering in your ear, "Hey, you don't belong here. Remember that time you were acting like that dumb NPC?" Like you're going to start to see things about yourself, and you're going to start to react to yourself just the way you would react to, or the habitual way you've reacted to everybody else. And you're going to count yourself as not worthy, just as you've been counting everybody else as not worthy.
Hmm.
So there's a self-fulfillingness to it, and you can sort of theorize and be like, well, you could get around that by, insert whatever cheat code, but I just don't think that's how it works. So I think that hopefully that helps illustrate the connection. You still can't delineate it because, well, the eternal is eternal and ever present. So how do you miss out on it? How do you move towards it? How do you gain or attain it? Well, you don't, but at the same time, the infinite eternal has all its made purpose and form, and it has an intimate interest in our lives. So there's a what? There's a direction that you're supposed to be going, or at least there's some directions that you're not supposed to be going. And if you just keep on going in those directions, then uh, there's real consequences to that.